The gym fell silent. Every eye locked on the center mat, where a cocky black belt instructor towered over a quiet girl in an oversized hoodie. Jeff Walter's smirk widened as he cracked his knuckles, playing to the crowd of parents and students lining the walls of Lions Martial Arts Academy in Linton, Indiana. "Come on, princess," he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Show me what you got." 16-year-old Sheila Moore didn't respond. She simply stood there, barefoot on the worn foam mats, her brown hair pulled back in a loose braid, her expression completely still, not scared, not angry, just watching. What Jeff didn't know, what nobody in that Saturday morning class could possibly know, was that beneath that shy exterior lived a legacy forged in fire and sacrifice. A legacy passed down from one of the most elite tactical operatives the world had never heard of. But he was about to find out. 1 minute. Light contact only, Coach Darren announced from the sideline, his voice carrying a note of hesitation. "Respect the mat." Jeff barely nodded. He didn't bow. He was too busy soaking up the attention, too confident in his black belt and his reputation as the gym's top fighter. Sheila bowed, slow, deliberate. Then she dropped into a stance so subtle most people missed it entirely. The timer beeped. Jeff moved in fast, tossing a lazy jab to test her reaction. Nothing. She didn't even blink. He threw another, faster this time, with a little snap behind it. Still nothing. "Come on, kid," he laughed. "At least try to block." Then he threw a playful front kick, aimed short, just to make her flinch. But instead of flinching, Sheila simply shifted her weight, so smoothly it looked rehearsed. Suddenly, she was behind him. Jeff spun around, his smirk faltering. "Lucky," he muttered. He came in again, this time with real intent. A sharp jab aimed at her shoulder, fast and clean, the kind of strike that had won him tournaments. Sheila moved her head exactly 3 inches to the left. The punch sailed past her ear. Before Jeff could reset, she parried his follow-up with nothing but the back of her wrist, redirecting his momentum like water flowing around a rock. The parents leaned forward. The other students stopped whispering. Jeff's jaw tightened. This wasn't going how he'd planned. He faked high, then shot low, going for a leg sweep. It was fast, too fast for most to react to. But Sheila had already read the shift in his hips. She stepped over the sweep, light as air, and as Jeff's leg extended past her, she tapped the back of his knee with her foot. Not hard, just enough to say, "I could have dropped you." "Okay, that's cute," Jeff said, his voice losing its playful edge. "But let's get serious." He lunged in with real speed now, hands up, closing the distance like he was sparring someone his own size. He threw a combination jab, cross, hook, textbook striking, but Sheila wasn't there anymore. She slipped inside his guard so fast it looked like teleportation. Her hand locked around his wrist mid-punch, and with a subtle twist of her body, she applied pressure to his elbow joint. Jeff froze. 1 more inch, and his arm would hyperextend. 1 more ounce of force, and he'd tap or snap. The gym went dead silent. Sheila held him there for exactly 2 seconds, long enough for him to understand. Then she released him and stepped back, hands open, palms facing down. Calm, controlled, unbothered. The timer beeped. Jeff stumbled backward, his face flushed red. He tried to laugh it off, rubbing his wrist like it was nothing. "Lucky grab," he muttered, but his voice cracked. Nobody was buying it. From the back of the gym, an older man in a faded military jacket watched from the bleachers. His weathered hands gripped a small embroidered patch, midnight blue with gold thread. On it, the words, "Task Force 18, Nemesis." Next to him on the bench sat a photograph, creased and worn. A woman in full combat gear, standing tall with a rifle slung across her chest. Her eyes were sharp as blades. And on her shoulders, a small girl with the same brown hair, the same quiet intensity. The man didn't speak. He didn't need to. He'd seen this before, 8 years ago, in a different country, under a different sky. He'd watched that same woman disarm 3 armed hostiles with nothing but precision and nerve. And now, in this small gym in Linton, Indiana, he was watching her daughter do the same. Coach Darren approached Sheila slowly, crouching beside her. "Where did you learn that wrist lock?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sheila glanced toward the man in the bleachers, then back at the mat. "Home," she said. It was the first word she'd spoken all morning, and it carried the weight of 1,000 untold stories. Jeff rolled his shoulders, shaking off the embarrassment like water. He wasn't about to let some quiet teenager make him look weak. Not here. Not in front of everyone. "All right," he said, louder than necessary. "That was cute. Now let's see what happens when I stop playing around." He reset his stance, this time tighter, more focused. The playful grin was gone. This was the Jeff who'd won state championships, the Jeff who taught advanced classes and posted highlight reels online. He opened with a crisp jab, fast, clean, aimed right at Sheila's face. She moved 1 inch to the left. The punch cut through empty air. Jeff threw again, faster this time, adding a feint to catch her off guard. But Sheila's eyes never left his chest. She wasn't watching his hands. She was reading his breath, the subtle rise and fall of his ribs that telegraphed every move before it happened. She slid off the line again, effortless. The laughter in the room thinned into confused murmurs. Jeff's frustration spiked. He switched tactics, dropping low and snapping a roundhouse kick toward her lead leg. It was meant to sweep her balance, force her to react, but Sheila didn't block. She let the kick pass right in front of her shin, then stepped smoothly behind him while his leg was still extended. Before Jeff could turn, she tapped his back with 2 fingers. Not a strike, a message. I could have ended this already. Jeff's face flushed hot, his ego ignited like gasoline meeting flame. "Okay," he muttered, voice tight. "You want to dance? Let's dance," he charged. This time it wasn't a drill. It wasn't light sparring. Jeff came in fast and heavy, throwing a jab-cross-hook combination with real power behind it. The kind of speed that made students flinch. Sheila exhaled once, slow, controlled. Then she moved. Her body shifted like smoke. She angled inside his guard, so close Jeff could smell the faint scent of laundry detergent from her hoodie. His punches sailed past her shoulders, missing by fractions. And then, with a subtle pivot of her hips and a light push against his extended arm, Jeff felt his own momentum betray him. His feet left the mat, the world tilted, and gravity did the rest. Jeff hit the mat with a sharp smack that echoed through the gym like a drumbeat. For a moment, nobody moved. Parents lowered their phones, eyes wide, like they weren't sure what they'd just recorded. The students stared in stunned silence. Even Coach Darren stood frozen, his clipboard dangling forgotten in his hand. Jeff forced a laugh. Too loud, too fast. "Lucky throw," he said, scrambling to his feet. "Caught me off balance." But his face was burning red, and his eyes weren't smiling anymore. "Again," he demanded, voice harder now. "One more round." Coach Darren hesitated. "Jeff, maybe," I said again. Sheila didn't move. She just stood there, hands loose at her sides, waiting. Jeff came at her like a man trying to prove something. He threw real combinations, this time aggressive, relentless, the kind of striking meant to overwhelm. Jab, cross, uppercut, knee, fast and heavy. But Sheila didn't run. She angled, Every strike Jeff threw, she redirected. Not with force, with geometry. She guided his punches past her body, let his kicks glide off her hips, and waited. Then, when Jeff overcommitted on a hard right cross, Sheila caught his wrist. Not hard, just precise. She rotated her body slightly, applying pressure to his elbow joint at the exact moment his weight shifted forward. Jeff froze. He felt the lock immediately. The kind of control that didn't need force. One more inch, and something would tear. Ligaments, tendons, maybe bone. Sheila held him there for 3 heartbeats. Then she released him and stepped back. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, almost apologetic. Jeff stared at her, chest heaving, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. He wasn't just beaten, he was controlled, managed. Like a child being handled by someone who knew exactly how far to push without breaking him. It shook him more than any knockout ever had. And then, from the bleachers, someone stood up. A woman near the benches whispered, "Sheila?" The name hung in the air like a ghost. Jeff turned, still breathing hard, and saw her. Mid-40s, lean, with short gray-streaked hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. On her keychain, dangling from her gym bag, was an old metal tag with a dojo logo Jeff recognized instantly. It was from his first gym, the one he'd trained at 15 years ago, back when he was just another cocky teenager trying to earn his stripes. His confidence cracked. Sheila didn't look proud. She didn't look victorious. She just looked tired. Coach Darren crouched beside her, his voice gentle now. "Where did you learn to control angles like that?" Sheila glanced toward the bleachers, where the older man still sat holding the Task Force 18 patch. Then she looked back down at the mat. "Garage," she said. The word landed heavier than any punch. Jeff scoffed, trying to cling to his pride. "Garage training? Come on. You expect us to believe." "Jeff," the woman's voice cut through the gym like a blade. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on him. "You don't remember what you did back then, do you?" Jeff's jaw locked. His hands balled into fists. "What are you talking about?" The woman didn't blink. "Linton Junior Tournament, 2009. You were 17. You broke a girl's wrist in the finals because you couldn't handle losing to someone smaller." The gym went dead silent. Jeff's face drained of color. "That girl," the woman continued, voice steady and cold, "was Sheila's older sister." The memory hit Sheila like a fist she couldn't block. High school hallways, whispers that followed her like shadows. The day her older sister Emma came home with her wrist in a cast, tears streaming down her face, refusing to talk about what happened at the tournament. The day Sheila stopped eating lunch in public because the stairs were too heavy to carry. Emma never competed again. The injury healed badly. She lost her scholarship. And 6 months later, when their parents died in a car accident on Route 67, Emma became someone Sheila barely recognized, quiet, distant, drowning in pills and regret. Sheila wasn't training to be a champion. She was training to survive the shame that had swallowed her family whole. Tessa Moore, the woman from the bleachers, stepped onto the mat. Her presence commanded silence. "I'm Sheila's aunt," she said, voice steady. "I raised her after we lost Emma and her parents." Jeff's face went white. "The garage training wasn't random," Tessa continued. "It was structured, strict, quiet. I taught her 3 rules. She counted on her fingers. Never hit first, never show off, end it fast." Coach Darren glanced at Sheila, understanding flooding his eyes. Jeff's hands trembled. The respect in the room was slipping through his fingers like sand, and he could feel it. A teenager in the corner still had his phone recording. Jeff's voice cracked as he spoke. This is insane. You're making me out to be some monster over an accident from 15 years ago. It wasn't an accident, Tessa said coldly. You torqued her wrist after the ref called stop. You smiled while you did it. The gym felt like it was running out of air. Jeff straightened, desperation bleeding into his voice. Fine. You want the truth? Then let's settle this properly. A real match. Full contact. Let's see if she can handle. Enough, Coach Darren said, stepping between them. But Jeff's eyes were wild now, unraveling. I'm not the bad guy here, I'm not. Coach Darren hesitated, realizing with growing dread that Jeff was about to expose something ugly in front of everyone, and there was no stopping it. Tessa's voice cut through the tension like steel. Jeff didn't just train at another gym, he was kicked out. Jeff flinched. Not for losing, Tessa continued, for how he treated people weaker than him. Smaller kids, girls, anyone he thought couldn't fight back. The students exchanged glances. Parents pulled their children closer. The town never fully knew, Tessa said, but the martial arts community did. That's why he moved to Linton. Fresh start, new reputation. Jeff's jaw clenched so hard it looked like his teeth might crack. That's why you perform so hard now, Tessa said, stepping closer. You're terrified of being seen clearly. Sheila stood silent, arms at her sides, watching Jeff crumble under the weight of his own history. She's not just a mirror to your skill, Tessa finished. She's a mirror to your character. Jeff's breathing turned ragged. He needed control. He needed the room back. Fine, he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Let's do this right. A proper demonstration. Controlled sparring. No hard feelings. Coach Darren's instinct screamed no, but the room was watching, waiting. Light contact, Darren said firmly. Full respect, and you bow. Both of you. Jeff bowed, the motion stiff and mechanical. Then he leaned close to Sheila, voice low enough that only she could hear. You think they'll pick you over me? Sheila met his eyes, calm as still water. They already did. Rain rolled in that evening, drumming against the gym's metal roof like a warning. The dojo felt different, quieter, heavier. Most students had gone home, but Sheila stayed. She always stayed late, moving through footwork drills alone, barefoot on the mats, breathing in rhythm with the storm outside. The door banged open. Jeff stood in the doorway, soaked and shaking. Not from the cold. No phones, he said, voice raw. No witnesses. Just you and me. Coach Darren stepped out from his office. Jeff, go home. I need this, Jeff said, desperation cracking his voice. I need to prove. Prove what? Darren snapped. That you can beat a 16-year-old girl? That's your legacy? Jeff's hands balled into fists. He stepped onto the mat anyway. Sheila didn't move, didn't speak. She just reset her stance. She didn't want revenge. She wanted closure. Jeff attacked faster than before, throwing everything he had, punches, kicks, elbows, trying to overwhelm her with sheer aggression. But Sheila stayed steady. She didn't fight loud. She fought smart. Jeff overcommitted on a wild hook, his weight lurching forward. Sheila sidestepped, caught his wrist, and used his own momentum to redirect him hard into the mat. Jeff hit the ground with a heavy thud. This time, he didn't laugh. He didn't get up right away. He just sat there, breathing hard, staring at his hands like they'd betrayed him. How? He whispered. Sheila knelt beside him, close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. How do you stay calm when you're scared? Jeff asked, voice breaking. Sheila's answer was quiet, simple. Because fear used to own me. Jeff expected a lecture, a triumphant speech, something to rub salt in the wound. Sheila didn't give him one. She just looked at him with those steady, tired eyes and said, "You don't beat bullies by becoming one. You beat them by refusing to be their target." The words hit harder than any strike. Jeff sat there, rain hammering the roof above them, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight of what he'd done. Not just to Emma, to every person he'd ever used to make himself feel big. Coach Darren helped Jeff to his feet. "Go home, get your head right, and don't come back until you know why you're really here." Jeff nodded, speechless, and walked out into the rain. The next morning, Coach Darren stood before the class. He didn't talk about technique. He didn't demonstrate throws or review kata. He talked about respect. "Belts are earned on the mat," he said, "but character is earned everywhere else." The students who'd once laughed at Sheila now watched her with quiet admiration. Some even bowed when she walked past. Jeff's reputation in Linton changed overnight. Not because he lost a match, because people finally saw his cruelty for what it was. Sheila, still in her faded light blue shirt and oversized glasses, didn't chase applause. She didn't post videos or brag online. She just kept training. The final image mirrored the beginning. The same mats, the same fluorescent lights humming overhead, the same quiet intensity in the air. But now, when Sheila stepped forward to the center of the mat, the room bowed. Not out of pity, out of respect, because they'd finally learned what she'd known all along. Belts don't make you strong. Character does.